Hello there, welcome to Kesra TV, your Christian daily feed in Uganda. My name is Charles O.S. Excited to be hosting today's divine talk with Dr. Richard. Dr. Richard is a mentor, to me is a dad, is a spiritual leader, and above all, is a missionary from the United States. Imagine leaving your home country just for your calling. Isn't that amazing? By the end of this broadcast, you will surely know what it takes to be a missionary, and you will know the dynamics and the do's and don'ts and what it is to take up the will of God besides yours. I mean, you will know how amazing it is to be in the Lord's purpose and to serve God with all your might, just like Dr. Ranger. Dr. Ranger, someone out there is like, who is Dr. Ranger?
So I guess the best answer I can give to that is that as best as I could do, I've been a faithful Christian. I did not set out in my life to be a missionary. I was a business professional working in the oil and gas industry.
Oh, you were working in the oil and gas industry.
That is right. I was working in business in different capacities as a negotiator for companies and organizations for which I worked. Been married to my wife Catherine for 47 years, and
47 years.
Yes, and a great blessing, and really. I could not be here without her. We've been a partnership. We've supported each other, and in the life of any marriage, they will tell you this: one carries one carries one for some time, then the other does the carrying for the other time, and you help each other grow in faith and in purpose and in understanding what God's call is. We're Americans, as you indicate. We've shifted many times in that career in the oil and gas industry caused my employers to move us. And so we've lived from Louisiana in the southern United States all the way to Alaska. And again, we've shifted 13 different times, if you count coming here to Uganda. Never intending to be a missionary professor, never intending to be a missionary. That was God's plan. It wasn't our plan, but what the Lord offered to us at each stage, because we grew over time. We grew as believers, we grew as a couple, we grew as servants. And so for some people, the Lord says, I have this for you to do, this big vision.
This big vision.
That wasn't really what happened for us. What we tried to do was be faithful. And we were in a number of different church communities over those years together. And we served in different roles: Christian education, teaching children, organizational work on behalf of the parish community of which we were a part, serving in parish leadership positions, maybe. Befriending and mentoring people and being mentored by people. I think the other thing that has been a blessing, big blessing, has been Catherine.
Your wife.
My wife. But I think we have each been blessed by Christian friends, spiritual guides, and pursuing those friendships, enjoying those friendships, learning from them. Those are basic steps. They are general steps that any believer can and should take.
Sure.
But what can happen is, if you are faithful and if you are open to the Lord's call, He will test you and He will find purposes for you.
So God Himself will test you.
Yes. If you are open to His will, you are staying grounded in the Word, and you are seeking out people yourself, clergy, non-clergy, lay people, good friends, with whom you can share faith and test each other that old expression, iron sharpening iron, but sometimes it's just a friendly hand, it's a conversation. And what happens is, over time, and we were maybe more slow than many, over time, God's purpose begins to unfold. Again, had you asked either of us several years ago, you want to be a missionary in Uganda? I'm not a missionary. No. And it took us time. We have often said with a smile, the average American does not quit his or her job in the USA and move to Africa suddenly. It takes a while. Now, Uganda for us feels like home. But, we've been blessed by that. I think one of the chief blessings the Lord gave to us as we accepted this call and grew into it was to say, and I will make a home for you.
Lord.
Yeah, we have friends here. We like Uganda. I think we are learning every day. We are older people. I'm 73, Catherine is 69, or almost. But so this is definitely a later phase in our life. But we were faithful, we were curious, we were both, not everyone is cut out for the same kind of adventure. Leaving their country and moving across the world to an entirely different culture.
Because I think it's kind of difficult for someone who has settled in their home country to taking up a decision to shift to another country just for mission.
Yeah.
And the only thing you depended on was faith.
Faith and the reassurance of the experiences that the Lord gave to us, the reassurance of our relationship, our trust in each other, and our recognition that we each trusted in Him. And, the other thing, as I explained, we shifted many times. And even within the United States, yes, it is one country, but our regions are very different from one another. And we lived for almost 13 years in the state of Alaska, in the far north of the United States and north of North America. Well, how would living in Alaska prepare a person for living in East Africa? The answer is a little complicated, but it is this: if you are willing to go to a new place, if you are willing to go to an entirely different place and embrace the changes that it presents to you, seek to understand its culture. Alaska is a very different culture from the rest of the U.S. Then you're ready for another change, another shift of similar magnitude. We were a long way from family in Alaska. We were 2 airplane flights of hours each, thousands of miles. And so we had to be apart from our extended family. Not everyone can do that. Not everyone can accept that change. We discovered we could, and we enjoyed a sense of discovery of a different environment and a different culture together. So, in a very curious way, yes, God did help prepare us for Africa by first putting us in
the
Alaska.
United States.
In Alaska, yeah.
So specifically, God can use anything to prepare you for His mission.
Yes.
Because it's kind of surprising that your mission destiny was in Africa, but then the Lord prepared you from the
Different
United
stages.
States, different
Yes.
stages. Wow.
And I think the other thing too, so I'm a teacher here. I was not a teacher professionally.
Well, actually, I wanted to ask you, because some of the people know you as a lecturer.
Right. And that's,
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Ranger is as well a lecturer at Uganda Christian University in the School of Business.
yes.
Yeah. So how that comes in? How does it?
I guess each of us in our different ways have always been motivated to keep learning.
To keep learning.
Yes. And I had to learn a lot about the business I was involved in. Some people will join an industry, as I did with my first job with the oil and gas industry, knowing a lot about it, having a family connection. For example, a parent who worked in that industry. I did not. The oil and gas industry relies heavily on engineering and geology. I never took an engineering course, and I had one geology course. I was a literature major.
Hey.
But then I went to law school. There is a lot that is involved with the oil and gas industry that has to do with the law, with contracts, with all the different legal issues. But the Lord blessed me with, we say this in the baptism rite in the Episcopal Church back in the U.S., the gift of an inquiring and discerning heart. I've not always, I've been imperfect at that. But again, I had mentors professionally, just as I had mentors spiritually. And building relationships of trust with those mentors enabled me to grow professionally, as having relationships with spiritual mentors, some clergy, but many not clergy, helped me to grow in my faith. So, I mean, I wish I could say that I followed, I knew what I was doing.
Oh, yeah.
No, God knew what he was doing. And I followed.
In other words, it was all about God.
It's really about him. It's really about him. And I'll tell a brief story because for a period of time, this is in 1990, in those years, I was a candidate for a job that I really wanted that was in the international side of the company that I worked for. I had aspirations to work internationally. I thought I had the gifts for that. And I was a candidate for 3 or 4 months. And at the end of the day, at the end of that time, they did not fill the position. And I was disappointed. But I had a good relationship with our pastor, and we were in Bakersfield, California at that time. So I told him at church on Sunday I did not get the job. He knew what I was referring to. And he said, let's have lunch on Monday. So we did. And he said, I have to tell you, I'm happy for myself you did not get the job, because I know you wanted it. But I am forming a mission team to do a short-term mission trip to Uganda.
Ooh.
And of course, if you had asked me as I was driving to that restaurant to meet my pastor, if you could go anywhere in the world, where would you like to go? Uganda would not be on the list.
In other words, you had never dreamt of being in Uganda?
Never dreamed of being in Uganda. But the thing that I remember to this day was this sense of God's faithfulness. I had sought a job internationally. I did not get that job. But here across the table is my pastor inviting me to an international role. Short, for 3 weeks. But I heard that is my international job.
Oh.
And so I came to a place I never had any intention of coming to, and was challenged, saw God at work. This in Uganda in 1990, some of your listeners will remember, it's a very different place than it is now.
Yeah, sure.
Still recovering from war, recovering from dictatorship. But I saw people of faith in action. I saw the church at work. I was a witness to these things. I didn't change them myself. But what I saw was God at work. And I saw a beautiful country. And I said, I don't know how it will happen. And at that time, it was not like, so, I want to come to Uganda. This is where. I didn't say that at that time. But I did come back to the U.S. because Catherine did not go. I went. And I said, someday, I hope we can see it together. It was just a place.
Mm.
We'd done a little travel, but never to Africa.
Mm.
But God worked with testing me,
Yeah.
and then and bit by bit invitations, and out of that came the invitation ultimately to come here. That was sort of step one. Step two was some years later, we shifted. I mentioned Alaska, California. We were living again in Alaska, and I applied for and received a job near Washington, D.C. We joined a church in the Washington, D.C. area, and the church had an active mission committee. We supported different ministries and in different places, and one was Uganda.
Uganda again.
So it was just, well, I'd been there, and so I was curious. And the Uganda Christian University's U.S.-based funding organization invited our church to meet some students. We were only sending money. And they said, well, we have some students coming. Would you like to meet them? And we said, sure. And
why not?
So why not? So they were UCU students, and we reached out to them. The first group didn't stay at our home, but the next group did for a couple of nights. They were part of a law school moot court team. They stayed at our home. We made friends. We continued to be in touch through email and social media and The next year, there was another group. That group stayed at our home. And over several years, we met challenging, talented, faith-filled students from UCU. They stayed at our home. They ate at our table. We had conversations about faith, about law, about music, about life. And we were introduced to people. Again, we didn't have a specific vision ourselves to come, but, excuse me, we were given relationships.
Relationship. So, in your calling, it is really very essential to value the relationships you have around you.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I mentioned, we certainly had mentors.
Well, yeah.
Along the way through our different church communities, mentors through our work experiences, different friends whom we trusted. But I think that's another message for a believer, is the Lord provides you with relationships, invest in those relationships.
Okay.
And be willing to learn from those relationships. And be willing to see the world not always through your own plan or through your own eyes, but what God may be trying to share with you, because He uses people.
Wow. So, among the people around you, there might be someone that is actually being used by God.
Yes.
For your own good.
Yes.
That's amazing.
And so, the priest that I told you about, my parent, where we had our lunch, and he led the mission team. He is still a friend. We came here together. He was among the people, when you start down this journey, a different pastor at a different church in Washington said, if you're even thinking about this, going and serving God in another place, you know what I would recommend you do, he told us. Form a discernment committee, like you were going to seminary, like you were thinking of orders or something. That is what is done.
Yeah.
If you're thinking of serving in mission, even as a lay person, like we are, find some people in the church community whom you trust.
You trust.
And have them pray together, ask questions, and what? And that was very, very good advice. And so we worked with intention with people who understood our call, may not have done it, although one of the couples was African. They were from Liberia.
Oh, Liberia, not Uganda.
Not Uganda, but they lived in the US, and they themselves had to change cultures.
Ah, okay.
And so they were helpful to us. With different other people were in our discernment group for different reasons. So we were then now intentional about seeking God's ideas and insights through friends.
Through friends.
And they helped prepare us. And the priest that I told you about, the first one, he is still a friend.
Okay.
We Zoom with him once or twice a year.
Oh.
And he prays for us. And, you know, he's now retired from mission work, which he did.
Mm.
But he understands what we are going through, and he's still a mentor.
Still a mentor.
Yes.
Well, I'm referring to the word you said that learning. You still even learning.
Still learning.
That's why you still even have a mentor.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. And we didn't know anything. We really didn't know anything about Africa before we came here. If you had asked me, I knew more about South America. I didn't know a lot about South America, but I had been there several times on business. I could even speak a little Spanish, not much, but a small amount. And if you had asked me before all this happened, if you could ever see yourself as a missionary, where would you go? I would say South America.
South America.
Yeah. But the Lord figured, okay, maybe I can move this one, but I need someone in Uganda. And so being flexible, being open, but also desiring to learn. I think it's not easy and maybe very, very difficult if you say, Lord, I would like to serve you in some other place, but I'm not going to learn a language, or I'm not going to learn a culture. You know,
surely.
Yeah. Well, you can maybe do some good for the Lord, but where you are.
Where you are.
Yeah.
Considering where you are first.
Yes. Yes.
Ah,
And that's okay, because the Lord has plenty of work to be done everywhere.
everywhere.
The calling of serving in mission is different, and not everyone is fit for it. But are you interested in learning? Are you open to another culture and another way of seeing? Are you open to adventure?
Okay. In other words, get your mind open to learning.
Yes. Yes.
Be flexible when it comes to learning.
Yes.
Adventure, new knowledge about different things. It's so essential in someone's calling.
It is. And, you know and to be accepting and willing to accept a call. You know, not everyone is called to move thousands of miles to a different continent and live in a new place and eat new food. But if you're open to it, I guess what I could say to the people listening is, if you trust in the Lord's provision and His capability to show you new experiences, new ways of thinking, and new ways of testing your gifts, it will not get any better for you than to trust in the Lord.
Wow, that's amazing.
So that's why we're here. Not, again, our vision and our plan, but responding each time, and again, through much of it through people to help us discern God's will. People, the students who stayed with us, who helped introduce us to this place called Uganda. And even when we were hosting, we were not necessarily, we were at a point where, someday I would like to see Uganda. But we didn't see ourselves as leaving the U.S.
Shifting to Uganda.
Until one day we received a specific invitation from a man who was himself a missionary faculty here. And he was calling us for a different purpose, and he was on the mobile phone, and he said, by the way, have the two of you ever considered working at UCU? And we said, no. I mean, we were happy looked forward every spring to the groups, the students who would come. And he said something. Because again, listening for what is the Lord telling you and through who? And he said, well, I'll tell you something. The two of you obviously have a heart for the students and the university, and you've been talked about.
Oh.
And that was later validated. We had another group of students stay with us in Washington still. We had not yet been. And I was down washing dishes after supper with one of the students. The other was talking to my wife in our dining room. And he said, they tell us back at school, if you go to this moot in the USA, in Washington, and you stay with the Rangers, it will be like a seminar. You will have the most interesting conversations. And
Really?
that was like the highest praise I'd ever gotten.
He said you felt good
I felt very good.
because your name is being talked about somewhere.
Yes.
You actually not used to be, but your name is there.
And what they were telling me was the students who came, who were they were very good at what they were doing if they were at this mood, they felt we were helping them. Because in our conversations around it, we would be talking about the cases they were working on, their work in the mood. But that would lead us maybe on a different night to be talking about the law, or about the history of the law in the United States, or about the history of the United States, and global issues. Just conversations among people who were testing each other and being interested in ideas. And they felt like we were faculty. They came away from staying with us saying, we learned something from these people.
Okay. So, in other words, the people around you can greatly influence
Yes.
what the Lord has planned in your life.
Absolutely.
Well, as you've heard it, check among the people around you and check on those you consider to be friends. As you've heard from Dr. Ranger, that most of the influence towards his mission work came from the people around you, isn't it?
It is. And if you think of it, Charles, that's very, I would say this sort of in U.S. English, it's very Acts of the Apostles. If you consider how the church was formed, it was not formed by theologians. It was not formed by bishops necessarily. It was formed by a community of believers who helped each other, who tested each other, who encouraged each other. They were the first group were fishermen.
Sure.
I mean, this whole church that we are a part of around the world started with 11 fishermen, and they added a 12th, and some other believers, the women who followed them, and so forth. So you can certainly get a formal education in seminary and study missiology, they call it, or you can trust the Lord and listen to the people He has placed around you.
Okay.
And see what answers He provides, see what challenges He presents.